About 1 to 2 years ago, I published a few baking tutorials such as psyllium husks versus powder, egg whites versus whole eggs, and battle of egg whites. So please check them out here, okay? Now subsequently, I published a video on the ultimate keto bread baking tutorial, which is quite comprehensive. So please check it out here. Now since I published this video, I have been receiving requests for shorter baking tutorial, so I am basically doing that right now. I actually have published one last week, which is part 1, and it actually covers about the main problem of keto bread, okay, which I have actually shared about the incorrect use of psyllium husks. So the main issue with keto bread is not using psyllium husks properly, so please check out the video here, okay? So today I will be sharing with you on the different type of low carb flours. As I mentioned before, keto recipes can be quite complicated due to the alternative ingredients used. Low carb flours have different characteristics and different ratios, so you need to understand them to ensure you have better success in baking. Okay, now let's look at the type of low carb flours. And basically I'm going to cover all those that I have been using, okay? Those that I have not been using, I can't comment on them. Alright. First type of low carb flour is almond flour. It is most commonly used in keto baking, and it is actually very easily available in ground or super fine texture, okay? I use super fine texture all the time, but you can actually use ground ones, especially for recipes with coarse and crispy texture, such as cookies and crackers, okay? Now almond flour has a very neutral color and taste, so which is actually great. That's why it's very suitable for most recipes. But it does have a heavier and denser texture, so it is unable to rise as much, particularly for keto bread, even with baking powder and yeast. Alright. Now almond flour has a 1-to-1 ratio with regular flour, but certain adjustments still need to be made, especially on the moisture level. So it is still best for recipes that requires a crispy, smooth texture, neutral taste and color. Apart from almond flour, there are other nut flours that are equally good, if not better, okay, such as ground walnuts, pecans, hazelnuts and peanuts. They are great alternatives. I have used them to make keto bread, buns, and they really taste great because they rise much better, and that is why they have a lighter and fluffier texture than using almond flour, okay? Now I have used ground walnuts to make crispy cookies, crackers, and they turn out so well. I've also used it to make delicious cakes such as walnut coffee cake, walnut chocolate cake, carrot cake, and also the regular cake. Now these nuts have a 1-to-1 ratio with almond flour, so you can easily substitute them. But these nuts are not so available in, not easily available in flour, so you need to grind them at home using a multi-grinder, okay? Now, I find that only hazelnuts and peanuts can be ground by itself. Walnuts and pecans need to be combined with coconut flour as it helps to absorb the excess fats, and then it will help with the grinding process, okay? Now, home grinding cannot produce a fine texture because the fat contents are still intact. So if you grind them a little further, they will actually turn into a paste or butter, okay? Now commercially ground ones, they can be super fine because the fat is squeezed out and sold as oil. Then the leftover cake is ground into a powdery texture, and then it is sold as flour, okay? Now because of this, the home ground nuts are only suitable for recipes that do not require a super fine texture and a neutral color, because like walnuts and some of the nuts, they can be a lot darker in color. Now the other low carb, common low carb flour is coconut flour, which has a much lower carb content, and it is easily available and is also lower in cost. Alright. Now, coconut flour does not have a 1-to-1 ratio with other low-carb flours because it is very absorbent. Okay, that's why more eggs and liquid is required. Now, that is also why a small amount of coconut flour is required, because it will bulk up after absorbing all the liquids. Okay, now sometimes certain coconut flour may be more absorbent than others, and you'll find that you have to add more moisture into the batter because it is drier and thicker. Okay, if you experience that, I suggest you try other brands, and once you find the right one, then you stick to it. Now, I find that using coconut flour for keto bread, the texture is actually heavier and denser, as it does not rise as much. Okay, but when combined with ground flax seeds, it will rise better and the texture is lighter and fluffier. Okay, but however, for cakes, it does produce a lighter and softer texture. It is not suitable for cookies or any recipes that requires crunch because of its moist characteristics. Okay, now the next thing I want to talk about is flax seeds. Okay, there are two types of flax seeds, the brown and golden ones. Both have quite similar nutrition, and they are easily available, not too costly. And actually, I prefer to use the golden flax seeds, particularly for keto bread, because of the lighter color, which makes the bread look more pleasant. Right? Now, ground flax seeds rises so well with rising agent, and that is why it is a good combination with other low carb flours. Okay. Now you'll notice that I have combined coconut flour with flax seeds for keto bread, simply because it produces a much lighter and fluffier and crispier texture. Okay, so ground flax seeds bread itself also rises so well, but if you're not a fan of flaxseed, then you may not like the taste of it. Now, ground flax seeds are actually very suitable for bread, cakes, cookies, where a smooth texture is not required. Okay, the high fiber content is able to produce a very low or zero net carb content. Now, to grind flax seeds, just pulse 1 to 2 times and you will get a meal texture. Okay, that's a meal texture. Only take 1 to 2 pulse, and another few pulse will become ground flax seeds. Okay, now of course you can find flaxseed flour or powder in the market, so you can actually use this too. Now, this next one is one of my favorite, sunflower seeds. Okay, now sunflower seeds are a much cheaper alternative, low carb flour, and it is easily available and so easy to grind at home. Okay, it rises so well with rising agent, especially for keto bread, and so it produces a very light and fluffy texture. Okay, when combined with flax seeds, it rises even better with a very short proofing time with yeast. Okay, now because sunflower seed can turn green due to the chlorogenic acid, which reacts with baking soda and baking powder to some extent, the acid from apple cider vinegar, which we use in keto bread, that helps to neutralize the reaction. Okay, now for recipe that produces a dark color, this reaction would not affect at all. Okay, because if we turn green and the recipe is dark like chocolate, so surely you can't see it at all, so that's not a problem. Ground sunflower seeds are also suitable for cakes, except that it can be a bit moist due to its high fat content, so adjustments needs to be made to the moisture level. Also, because the flavor can be a bit strong, I try to limit it to recipes that can mask this flavor, like chocolate, coffee, and carrot cake as well. Okay, now they're also great for crispy cookies, tortilla wrap, pizza crust. It has a 1-to-1 ratio with almond flour, but again, the moisture level may need to be adjusted. Now, this next one is pumpkin seeds, okay, which is also known as pepitas. They are easily available, easy to grind at home, and relatively cheap. Okay, now, however, ground pumpkin seeds are unable to absorb much water, so it needs to be combined with other low-carb flours. Hence it is not a one-to-one ratio with other low-carb flours, and it does not rise as much as sunflower and flax seeds. Okay, now the good thing is that it has quite a neutral taste, so I have tried it on cakes and it worked out pretty well. Now here's another one of my favorite, black and white sesame seeds. Okay, they are easily available, easy to grind at home. Both types have the same nutritional benefits. Black ones have their hulls intact or shells intact, whereas the white ones have their hulls removed. Okay, now ground sesame seeds are great for keto bread. It rises well with rising agent, producing a light and fluffy texture. However, it may have a mild bitter taste, but it doesn't seem to be a problem for those who are a fan of sesame seeds. I have received comments for the black sesame seed bread where people have said that it's quite bitter. But when I check with those who love sesame seed bread, they tell me it's not bitter at all, not at all. So I guess it depends on individuals. Okay, now they are also great for making crispy cookies. However, for cakes, I only limit to black and white sesame cakes because of its strong flavor. And finally, I'm going to talk about oat fiber. Okay, now oat fiber powder I have only been using probably a few months ago, and I'm loving the result of it. Now it is not so widely available. It comes from the husk or hull of the oat grain. So don't confuse that this is not oat grain, okay? It comes from the husk of the oat grain. The whole oat grain is actually dehulled to separate the oat groats, which is further processed to make different type of oats, okay? It is pure insoluble fiber. It has zero carbs and nutrients. It is gluten-free, just like the rest of the whole grain, okay? But there are concerns of cross-contamination from agricultural and processing equipment. But most people on gluten-free diet have no problem. But if you are concerned, then please ensure that you buy one that carries the certification of gluten-free. Now, oat fiber powder actually can't be used on its own because the texture of the product becomes hard rock, okay? So it has to be combined with something. I've tried combining with coconut flour, almond flour, and it comes out very dense. But when I combine it with flax seeds, it turned out incredible. The rice was so good with rising agent, and it produces the best texture. Okay, so this combo also produces a very low or zero carb content. Okay, now oat fiber is great for bread. I've tried it for cakes, donuts, pancakes, pizza crust, and tortilla wrap as well, and they all turn out great. Okay, so this combo of oat fiber and flax seeds has a lot of potential, so I'll be experimenting more with this combo. Now, in conclusion, I would like to say that we do not have to be limited to almond and coconut flour because there are so many alternative low-carb flours that can be healthier and cheaper and produces a much better texture. Okay, now grinding nuts and seeds on our own saves so much cost. All we need is just a good grinder. Now you can grind in bulk and store in the fridge or freezer. It can last us a long time, and you just need to take it out and weigh it anytime you want to use. So convenient. Okay, now these are low-carb flours that I have been using. And even though there may be other options, but I have to limit to those that are easily available and affordable so that it can benefit more people. Okay, so I hope you find this tutorial useful, and next up I will be talking about the substitution of ingredients. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.